We came here to change it because changing the status quo is the best way to change lives. The IMF now projects that the Bahamian economy will post real growth at 2.3% in 2024 as large tourist inflows fuel the economy and inflation continues to decline. We are challenging the status quo in our energy sector. We just passed 2 new comprehensive pieces of legislation that provide the framework for the first serious energy reforms in the Bahamas in decades. We are also challenging the status quo in healthcare, building not just 1 new hospital, but 2, one in New Providence and 1 in Grand Bahama. We are challenging the status quo in Grand Bahama, where the Port Authority has been earning private profits at the public's expense while failing to live up to their responsibility to develop Freeport. It's time, long past time, for change in Grand Bahama. Funds have been designated in this budget to conduct and implement a salary review with the aim of increasing the compensation for the entire public service, including accountants, nurses, teachers, defense force officers, police officers, immigration officers, corrections and custom officers, all of whom should be adequately compensated for their hard work and dedication. We are facing forward with renewed confidence and determination. We are strong enough to challenge the status quo on behalf of the Bahamian people. Yes. And we are changing lives. Yes.
The Office of the Prime Minister Press Office is the primary liaison between the Fourth Estate and the Office of the Prime Minister and Cabinet.
Every day, we are working to build a more inclusive economy and a stronger, safer country.
Hear all of the latest developments as the Davis administration carries out the broad mandate of progress and change. Our live weekly press briefings provide full access to current newsmakers on the most topical issues of the day. We facilitate prompt responses from cabinet ministers on the latest reports and get answers on the issues that matter to you.
Will any penalties be levied against the
OPM Press Now, keeping you in the know. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing. It's good to see all of you. And I just want to say a special hello to those tuned in by way of social media. Well, yesterday we were able to listen in as the Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis, presented one of the most anticipated reports on the economic calendar, Budget 2024-2025. We heard the prelude to some of the most important priorities of the administration outlined, including a new hospital for New Providence and Grand Bahama, the way forward for the island of Grand Bahama, and talks with the Port Authority and what the Prime Minister would like to accomplish in that regard. We also heard some of the key numbers which point to many improvements in the fiscal position that the government wants to place the country in the year ahead and certainly long term. We're very pleased to welcome to speak about some of the details of these plans, which will be detailed, of course, in the upcoming budget debate. The Minister of Economic Affairs, the Honorable Michael Halkitis, along with the Financial Secretary, Mr. Simon Wilson. Please welcome Minister Halkitis.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to those present, and thank you very much, Ms. Adley. Good morning to all present and as well tuning in by social media. As has been said, the Prime Minister presented the budget communication yesterday, which was the report card on government's performance over the past year, as well as laying out the government's policy initiatives for this upcoming year. I spoke to you last week, and understandably, before the budget, there was not much detail that I can give other than to give a hint that we were trending in the right direction in terms of our fiscal targets. We are very pleased with the progress that we have made so far in terms of the growth in the economy, the budget performance in terms of the revenue and expenditure, the reduction in the deficit, reduction in the debt, all that was detailed by the Prime Minister yesterday. The next step is the beginning of the debate, the debate begins next week, Wednesday, at which time the Prime Minister will open the debate and go into some more detail on his policy initiatives and some other topics of interest to the public. And as the debate progresses, you will see the report of the various ministers in terms of their performance over the past year, the initiatives that they were able to implement, and as well what they expect to do in the upcoming year. So at that point is when we will get a lot of details from the policy perspective. As you would imagine, the budget is a very, very technical document in terms of facts and figures, so to speak. I would, here with us today is the Financial Secretary, the Head Technical Officer in the Ministry of Finance. We thought it would be useful in case there were any questions as to any technical matters. Mr. Wilson would be able to address those and shed some light. I know you were in the press, given a lot of documents yesterday. And again, a lot of it is of a technical nature. And in case you had any questions, we can delve into that. And I will come back to the podium too, from the policy perspective, the government policy, government initiatives, where we are going. I would come back to the podium and answer any questions that you might have. So I'll invite Financial Secretary Simon Wilson to just come with his opening remarks. Thank you.
Good morning. As the minister said, yesterday was our budget day, budget presentation. So we tabled the budget in full details. We also tabled the fiscal strategy report. This year is the first year where we have the fiscal strategy report is being tabled at the same time as the budget. That report will be reviewed by the Fiscal Council, which the government is in the process of finalizing appointments of. And the council's job is really to support the work of the Ministry of Finance to make sure that our projections, assumptions which underlie the budget and revenue performance are credible. So that is coming up. The government also announced the appointment of the Public Sector Audit Committee, which is the next important tool. And the Audit Committee job is make sure that there are resources dedicated for the audit process, internal as well as external audit process, and make sure there's proper follow-up from any audit reports which are issued. If you have any questions about any specific aspect of the budget, I'm here to answer them.
Yes, Wilson, sorry. The last time you were here, you lied to us when we asked you about JDL in particular. You lied to the media about JDL.
I lied?
Yeah, you lied to the media.
How do I?
You told,
That's a very
you told us the media.
That's a strong word.
Yeah, but you told the media that JDL was only building out a building in the air freight terminal. 2 days after that, JDL sent out a memo saying that they were actually asking couriers to actually sign for business licenses in addition to charging them fees for importing goods into the country. And on top of that, every projection that's come out of the ministry of the last 3 years or so, I think the opposition leader said so. The deficit target was missed this year, and 2022 was missed, and 2021 was missed. So everything that's come out from this office, particularly when it comes down to the deficit and the revenue, is being off. So why would we believe anything that comes out of the ministry now this year for this budget?
I'm taken aback, but let's start by the first thing. You called me a liar. All right, that's the first thing. So we start the press conference by you calling me a liar.
You
No, 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 no. You called me a liar.
Okay.
You called me a liar.
Yes, sir.
So, next question.
Mr. Wilson,
No, you called me a liar.
so why did
No, no, no. You called me a liar. You smiling. You called me a liar. No, you called me a liar. You, I, I am this close. See, let me say this, eh? It's one thing to criticize the government for policies. It's one thing. But when you come and you use your perch in the media to make scandalous, unfounded allegations and think that you can get away with it, it don't go that way, my friend. Now, we have a history, hey? We have a history. We have a history. I fired you.
Okay.
I fired you for lying. A well-documented history. And you come here and call me a liar. You come here and call me a liar. No, we should end this. We should end this. We should end this because you come here and you call me a liar. Yeah. I mean,
And you have to retrieve that.
yeah, you have to.
And if everybody on my program can be on live on television, can we move?
But
He has to retrieve
he
that.
come here and he called the financial sector a liar.
This is all documented, Mr. Wilson.
No, it's not no, that's not documented. It's not documented. It's not documented. It is not documented. If you go back and you look at what was said, you look at what JDL statements were, you look at the clarification JDL provided, you will see that it was not documented, that what you said is really out of order. No,
I'll terminate.
I can't be here with this. Mike, and you smiling? you look here. Let me tell you something. Don't get too close. No, don't. You come here and try to call me a. You
don't do it, sir, please.
don't do it.
Don't do it.
I can walk. I can't wait for you. I am walk. No.
Minister,
No.
take some questions.
No. You can't. Don't do it.
Thank you.
Don't do it.
All this is documented, sir.
Okay. Mr. Alcides, you want to ask or
Just question?
yeah, you got your question.
Okay. Yesterday, the Prime Minister in his budget revealed that the government intends to purchase the International Bazaar. I think he said that the government will find $30 million to, among other things, purchase the International Bazaar. Are you able to say where does the government intend to get the funds from to purchase the International Bazaar?
Let me just make the $30 million is reference to purchase and redevelopment of the bazaar. So the $30 million does not represent the purchase price. Purchase price will be negotiated. The government, the revenues, PPPs, loans, the government has any number of options. I mean, we do that in the regular course of business. Yeah.
Oh, just a question of clarification. We know that in the budget that the government is doing a review of the public service salary, and I think that increased. Can you explain why it would cost, I think, about $10 million to do that? Explain why, that amount of money and what it would break down and what that would look like.
And do you think it'll be sufficient as well to cover the entire public service?
We have had an issue of attracting and retaining qualified individuals in the public service. We've done a number of studies in terms of benchmarking public sector salaries versus private sector salaries so that the government can be competitive. We can offer competitive compensation to people who we want to attract into the service. And, so, we have to do this continuing ongoing review to make sure that the government is able to offer compensation to keep people in the public sector. What we have seen is, a lot of people migrating out of the public sector for better pay, benefits, et cetera, in the private sector. We've seen it with, it's well documented in terms of nurses and teachers, et cetera, but even in other professional classes. And so we have to look at the issue, do the review, and make adjustments where necessary, because it's severely impacting us and our ability to offer service.
Just to clarify, I think it would be fully paid by the government, or you guys do partnership with the private?
No, this is, normally in those cases, you would have, like, particularly when you talk about, that would be a collaboration between the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Public Service, and then experts in those areas, private sector experts.
And then we also see there were consultancy increased by 7 million in certain aspects. I think it was the AG office, the LPM. Again, why was there increase to that more specifically?
Well, let me just make a clarification on that, because every time we see this consultancy line, people think it's consultants, think you're hiring consultants, but that consultancy, when you see consultancy services, one of the biggest in the budget is the consultancy service for the landfill. Also included in that is IT consultancy. In the AG's office, it has to do with when the AG is dealing with international matters, they might have to engage international counsel, lawyers abroad, to deal with certain matters, for example, US attorneys, UK attorneys. And so across the budget, you would see that. And a lot of it will have to do with IT. A lot of it has to do with AG, and then just various, anytime you engage the private sector, for the most part, that goes down as consultancy. It does not mean that the government is hiring consultants, which sometimes it's framed as the government is hiring consultants. No. If you hire someone to give you advice, that's consultancy service.
I guess switching gears a little bit, what do you feel is economic affairs to take on, lifting the tourism model as the biggest revenue generator in the country? I mean, when COVID happened, we learned that could be very risky. So what are your thoughts on where we are now with diversification of that industry and economic model?
Yeah, tourism continues to be the main driver, and it will continue to be the main driver of the economy. What we're doing is seeking to diversify within the industry by, developing in the Family Islands, and as well investing in things like agriculture, the creative economies. You heard the Prime Minister speak about that, and the fact that we'll be bringing intellectual property legislation to protect our creatives, the investment in agriculture, so that incrementally you substitute some imports. But tourism will be the main driver. Our job is to make sure that we extract more from the tourism industry.
So I asked off camera, but now I found the speech. So the Prime Minister yesterday, he said that funding for healthcare will be raised domestically through a commercial bank of $75 million that will be targeted towards the ongoing development of the hospital in Grand Bahama and the renovations of the Princess Margaret Hospital. So my question is then, is this for the new hospital that's being constructed in Grand Bahama? Are you able to say how much of that $75 million will go towards that? And then I guess the reason behind having to get additional funds, considering from what I understand, the hospital is I think a $200 million project. Okay.
Yeah, it's a $200 million. But so a bit of context with the government gets money from its revenue money that it makes. It gets money from borrowings. It might engage in a public-private sector, a public-private partnership. And so what the Prime Minister was outlining is, listen, there's a lot of work that is being done and needs to be done at the existing PMH, Providence. At the end of the day, we'll finance it. Some of it will come through ongoing government revenues where the government is paying from its revenue. Some of it will come from, if the government has to do any borrowing, but it all will be done within the budget framework.
So it's safe to say at this point government hasn't sourced the funds as yet, and you will explore the best possible option to get it?
The hospital is being built. I mean, I don't know, budgets, right? Let me step back. When we say we have, the budget is $3.4 billion, that does not mean on July 1st the government has $3.4 billion, right? It means that during the course of the year, the government will generate through revenues, through grants, through whatever, and different means, limited borrowing, we'll get this money to operate the government, all right? So when you say you're building a $200 million hospital, it doesn't mean that you have $200 million in the bank to build the hospital. It means that that's what it's gonna cost, and over the 2 years or whatever, multiple budget cycles that this thing is being built, the funds will be available for it. So when you're doing a project, you don't have the money over in an account to say, well, okay, that is for this. It's ongoing through operations of the government.
Now, during the budget communication, the Prime Minister highlighted, I think it was luxury real estate, and the administration has witnessed a sizable drop in the revenue of this category and its primary underperforming revenue item. What do you think, or your ministry think, what's causing the underperformance of that in real estate?
We think it's structures. We think it's people are organizing, creating companies perhaps in other jurisdictions to hold these things, so we think it's a way transactions are being structured to avoid the payment, and that is why the PM said, we're taking some steps in this budget to change some legislation and the way we administer to try and plug that loophole. But you can imagine that it is a cat and mouse game almost when it comes to tax enforcement, because people will find ways, and when you talk about people with means, they will engage advice and professional advice to avoid these things. And so it's up to us now to identify it and close the loophole. But we think it's structures and things like trusts and companies in various jurisdictions and various layers that people use to disguise this.
So, Minister, I wanted to now get your response to a lot of the criticism that's come following the communication, not just from the opposition, but from the public, who feels as though the budget did not address some key issues. We
Like what?
got a foreshadowing that it would have been, a deeper dive into what will happen as it relates to the energy sector, BPL, as it relates to a little more as it relates to healthcare and the GPPA, the cost of living. So. What is your response?
Well, the response is that the budget, we need to look at what the budget communication is and what it's not. The budget communication, by and large, is a report card of what has happened over the past year. You might go back a few years, how the government, in terms of finances, has performed over the past year, and how it expects to perform for the coming year. It lays out some government policies. Beginning on Wednesday, we're going to have about 2 weeks of debate in the House of Assembly, and followed by a few days of debate in the Senate, where all ministers would give an account of what they've done over the past year and speak to policy initiatives over the coming year. So you'll see the Minister for Energy and Transport speak about BPL. You'll hear the Prime Minister talk some more about the cost of living, and all ministers, all subject areas will be targeted in the budget debate. The budget communication itself is a status report, and I know a lot of people look forward to it, and it is a technical document. You know, some people find technical things exciting, but it is, but at the end of the day, it's a very technical document. But you'll see all of those things addressed during the debate. Understandably, you know, not all of everything can go into the communication.
Okay, also, of course, we want to get your response on what the opposition said, particularly with
Yeah.
the allegations and obviously the opposition claiming that due to the deficit forecast, which is 1 to 1.25%
Right.
adjustments, you know, the government are mandated to come back to the House with corrective action plan as per the fiscal responsibility elements of the public
Yeah,
government's plan.
yeah. Well, you know, the opposition has to have something to say, and I believe that, you know, I'll just say this. For the last 2.5 years, all we've heard from the opposition, particularly the spokesman for finance and their leader, is doom and gloom. First, we're going to go to the IMF, we're going to default on our bonds, we're not going to meet our targets, we're going to destroy the economy if we raise the minimum wage or decrease VAT. And they've been wrong in every case. All right? We set for this year, and I heard Mr. Kemp talk about the opposition saying we were wrong on our projections so far. We beat our projections. This year, we were very, very aggressive in projecting a 0.9% deficit. We will come in at about anywhere between 1 and 1.5%. We didn't meet the 9, but the overshoot, we don't think we think that is acceptable. The IMF predicted that we would come in at 2.6. In my meetings with them in April at the spring meetings, they themselves concede that we will come in at under the 2.6 that they originally projected. So I tend to, you know, I would believe those experts and economists before I put any stock into what comes out of the mouth of the opposition, who's, you know, like I said, they need to say something. It would be useful sometimes if they say something sensible when it comes to finances, but time and time again, you hear them, either they're predicting doom and gloom, or they are harping on some reporting deadline or some procurement requirement that they put in place without any foundation, any infrastructure, any training. And so we have had to go, for example, and put in place the procurement portal and the procurement training. We have now had to go in place to put in place the IT system so that the Treasury and the government can do these monthly reports. They go and pass legislation and say do monthly reports, knowing that it's not possible with the infrastructure we have. We are fixing that, and the Prime Minister said that. So, you know, as I said, the opposition, I guess they have to say something. I guess it's too much to expect that they actually say something sensible instead of just basically, you know, spewing, you know, whatever comes to their head just for the sake of opposition. And that's what I have to say about that. So we put I put no stock in what the opposition spokesman for finance has to say, or the leader has to say, because the opposition spokesman for finance got up in the parliament, criticized this government, for example, when it came to real property tax on rental properties, and when we were just requiring information, when he was the Minister of State for Finance, when they passed the legislation that required tenants to ensure that landlords paid their property tax. So, I mean, the degree of dishonesty and duplicity, it's just astounding. So we remain focused on what we have to do. We're pleased with the progress. We're very pleased with the progress, and you will see, and we'll share with you when we get the reaction from the experts, you know, that by and large, people are pleased with the performance so far.
And this is my last question. It's that 1 to 1.5% projection. How confident is the government?
We're very confident.
Well, because I know it's historic that governments have usually historically around 200 million to 300 million.
Well, we're changing the status quo, all right? And the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. Like the Prime Minister said, not too long ago, our budget deficit was 1.3 billion. This upcoming year, we're forecasting under 100, under $70 million, all right? When you see the outturn for this fiscal year, in a few months, because we have the remainder of May, just a few days in May and June to complete the fiscal year, you will actually see the performance of the government. And so, you know, I hear the predictions and, you know, you're not going to do it, the doom and gloom, you're not going to do it. It's going to be done. It has been done in the past 2 years where we've performed, and we're going to continue to do it. Perhaps, you know, when we hear Moody's and S&P and the IMF and those others from abroad say it, maybe we'll believe it.
I'm going to pick it up with a question. I know you expressed confidence that the
Yes.
government will meet the target.
Yes.
Is there room in this, I guess, budget, considering what's left? We have a month left. We're heading into the hurricane season. For in the event we have some sort of hurricane or something that may come, it's already projected to be a very active hurricane season. Is there room in this budget for if the government needs to pull funds to assist if something like that happen, or will that put us?
No, we have in place a contingency loan in place, $200 million with the IDB. So in the event of a hurricane, a disaster, we can draw immediately. We don't draw on it yet, it's in place. Also in the event of another pandemic, we have that arrangement in place. In case we need to draw down immediately, we don't have to go through the application process, it's already in place. We don't draw down on it unless we need to. And so that's one, you know, that's a very, very important element. And I want to say also on that point about targeting projections, if you go back and check the newspapers, we had the leader of the opposition at about halftime. And I think this is an important point that I continue to make, but let me just make it one more time. When we look at government revenues and expenditure, it's not even over the course of the year. So you might have seen some figures at the halftime saying, oh, the deficit is such a number, whereas the government projected this number. Most of the government revenue is collected in the second half of the fiscal year. That's between January and June. The Prime Minister spoke about how April was such a successful month in terms of revenue, all right? And so you've seen that, okay, whereas at the halftime it was this number, you've seen it come down. It's like the score at the halftime of a game. The fiscal year is a whole year. And so, not because you might see a particular number at, you know, halftime or at 3/4, that is the number that's going to be completed. So I say all that to say we're very confident. At the end of the process, you'll see the numbers.
Now, while you say, sorry, that's my last question. While you said that, you know, the anticipation is that at the deficit at the end of the year coming, I think, to 1.9.
It's going to be, we projected 0.9, which was less than 1%. We don't think we're going to achieve the 0.9. We now estimate that we'll achieve either between 1% and 1.5%, which is not far off.
So my question then, are you able to say what accounted for the shortfall?
Well, the things happen. And one of the biggest things is, if you're following the international press, you'll see, for example, that across the world, central banks are raising interest rates. We had an increase in interest expense on some of our outstanding debt that's in US dollars. You've seen interest rate expense go up. And during the course of the year, I mean, you know, we do a budget, we plan, we think such and such is going to happen. Sometimes we have emergencies, sometimes think we have to address matters. Some costs are higher than we think. Sometimes we projected for the revenue. We mentioned on the real estate. We had a fall off in that. So it's a number of factors that would cause you not to hit exactly on your number. But I want to go back and say, 2021, we had a $1.3 billion deficit, all right? This year, we're going to have we project next year, under 80 million. all right? So let's just let that sink in. It's a phenomenal achievement, and sometimes I think everybody else would say it's a phenomenal achievement, but we just need to recognize it.
So given that, do you think this will impact government reaching the targets for the 2025-2026 fiscal year? I know you said it's not that big a gap, but do you think that will have any impact?
No, we took that into account in setting our targets. So listen, we are well on target to achieving our goals. So in setting the targets for next year, we are aware of what the outturn would be for this year.
If you can comment on this, where are we at with the price margin increase for retail gas operators? I mean,
You'll ask me that every week.
right.
You what? I know, I understand. We continue to, and let me just give you the same answer I give all the time, right? We understand the retailers are in a difficult position. A lot of them they pay high rents, they pay franchise fees, they pay all sorts of things. Their expenses have gone up. They have asked for a margin increase. Margin increase means we add an additional amount onto the price that you're paying at the pump. What we want to balance is raising the price of gas for everybody. We have in the past given some relief to the fuel retailers, so we understand their situation. But we continue to try and work out something where we can have, where we can give them relief, but not have an automatic increase in the price of fuel, which will impact every driver, every bus driver, every fisherman, companies who do deliveries and that sort of thing. And so we continue to work on it. We, they've been patient. We're trying to, get something done, and we'll keep you posted. All right?
Minister, one last question. We saw the mention that you made of, in the budget, government made as far as creatives in the orange economy, as far as art supplies, cameras, some parts, as well as drones. Could you reiterate the importance of that the government sees in the orange economy, encouraging that?
It's very, very important. Intellectual property legislation is coming as well, as the Prime Minister foreshadowed. And, that's important. It's an important sector because, again, it goes to diversification of the economy and supporting artists who, become self-employed and entrepreneurs and, themselves generate business activity. So we're placing a lot of emphasis on it. It's in my ministry, Ministry of Economic Affairs, and as we go through this year, you'll see some more developments in terms of supporting the creatives in music, design, the visual arts, et cetera. And so that's a step. It might seem, sometimes you hear people comment on the things that are exempt, but I can tell you, every little bit helps for those entrepreneurs.
Well, I just gonna ask this because you're here, right? Are you able to say how much the government spent on the 15th Independence, the whole shebang? I know we're about to be in independence again, but are you able to give us a...
That they didn't do that report already? We'll get it. I mean, we had this thing with, I remember when we opened Parliament, that was a question. When we had the royal visit of the royals, that was a question. And now it's the 50th anniversary, we budgeted a certain amount. And we'll do the report. We do it for the World Relays, all of these things that we do. But I want to say one thing here that I say about these things, right? Because someone might look and say, well, you're spending X amount of money to celebrate your 50th anniversary of independence. Number one, it's a very, very significant milestone, and so whatever is spent, we ensure that it's well spent, but you don't spare, you don't do it on the cheap. It's a significant milestone, and it's an opportunity to speak about how far we've come and how far, some of our aspirations for the future. The second thing I want to say, and perhaps most important, is when we look at these things, I particularly remember when we itemized the royal visit, you will see expenditure for things like renting of lighting fixtures, hiring of individuals, catering of food, purchase of decorations, having people decorate, paying musicians, all of that goes to small businesses, Bahamian businesses, and so it's money in the economy. So we need to look not only on one side of the ledger when you're spending the money, but also look on the other side and who's benefiting from this. It's by and large small Bahamian entrepreneurs who are getting the benefit of it. It's not like you're taking X amount of money and throwing it down a hole or spending it abroad. It's money being spent in your economy. And that's still very, very important in terms of government spending for a lot of entrepreneurs. Oh, okay. Look for, I encourage you to tune into the budget debate. You'll have a lot more light shed on all of the matters that were expressed. And, we had a little unfortunate situation here that seems to stem from some personal beef. Very, very unfortunate when we have our public servants come up here. And I can say for the financial secretary, working with him over many years, never had any reason to question his integrity. And then let me just leave it like that, all right? And as far as, I think the backside of the question, and I think it was asked by someone else in terms of meeting targets, we know, I'll end with this, we know that anything, particularly economically, where you see the conditions and the lives of Bahamians being improved, that's not good for the opposition. They need this narrative of being on the brink. Government can't meet its obligations, government in crisis. They need that narrative in order to try and sell it to voters. It's not going to work. And they've been proven wrong over and over again, and they're going to be proven wrong again. There was this narrative going out that the government can't pay its bills, and the Prime Minister plainly stated that we have no issue with payables and paying people what we owe them. We have no issue in terms of being able to access funding, and as a matter of fact, you have many, many more avenues today than we had 2.5 years ago. So I just encourage the Bahamian people, when they digest some of the commentary coming from certain quarters, just take it with a grain of salt, because people need to have something to say, and unfortunately, what comes from certain quarters, we'd be well served if we disregard a lot of it. But thank you very much. Look forward to the budget debate, and coming at the conclusion of the budget debate to do a wrap up and the way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Halkitis, for a very comprehensive report, as usual. Well, let me just address what was a very unfortunate episode which unfolded just a few minutes ago. This press briefing is intended to give members of the press an opportunity to speak with newsmakers from the government. I've been a reporter for most of my professional life. The role of a reporter is, of course, to ask questions, to be objective, that is, to get both sides of the story. You are entitled to your opinion, as anyone is, but this podium is and should be one of mutual respect, and I think it has been since this medium was put in place. You do have an opportunity to ask your questions, to voice your opinions, but when we get to the point where personal attacks are being launched, that crosses the line. I condemn in the strongest terms what happened here this morning. The intent was for the financial secretary to speak about or flesh out some of the issues discussed in the budget communication issued yesterday, and I condemn in the strongest terms any attack. Now, as I said, nothing like that has happened here before, and I don't foresee that it will happen again, but I do want to say that going forward, we would want members of the press speaking to whoever the guests are to exercise the same level of respect that comes from this podium or any member of the government when they speak on the issues affecting everyone in the country. Thank you very much. We'd now like to welcome Ms. Laurenique Davis from Simply Delighted 242. She is our small business feature for today. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Laurenique Davis. I'm 24 years of age, and I'm the owner of Simply Delighted 242. So I first started my business let me backtrack. I realized I had an interest in baking when I first went in to see our Walker's in high school, where I graduated in 2017. There, I started baking cupcakes just for like classrooms. Then I just started venturing off. I would say I lost an interest for it over the years, and during the pandemic, I picked it up again because I needed extra cash, and so I started my platform. I promoted was Twitter. So I started baking like red velvet cheesecake brownies. I started baking like cheesecake pans, 9-inch, 10-inch, and from there I ventured off. I would say my business has been up and down. I'm not going to say I've been successful, but it's been up and down. I've had good days and bad days. I'll have days where I'd be like, hey, I baked at least 20 cupcakes and didn't sell one, and days where I've been sold out. So I just started my business back up again for Mother's Day, and I had a pretty good day. That day I sold over 20 pounds of cheesecakes. I had orders I couldn't fulfill. People from the family islands were calling from me. So I specialize in cheesecakes, I specialize in cupcakes, brownies. I specialize in anything that comes with desserts. So if you would like to reach me, my number is 558-5776. My IG is Simply Delighted 242. I don't have a Facebook as yet, but you can reach me if you would like to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Simply Delighted 242. And of course, as our small vendors usually do, we can try the samples right at the end of this press conference. But that brings our press briefing to an end for today. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day.